Good morning, everyone. My name is Kalpana. I am working as a computer science lecturer in TTWRDC Karimnagar College. So, in this lecture, I would like to teach about object oriented programming concepts. Before going to teach object oriented programming concepts, first I will teach what is the programming language. Okay, so what are the programming languages? Generally, to in our world, to communicate with each other, we need some languages like English, Telugu, or Hindi, right? So, in the same way, to communicate with the system, we need these programming languages. Okay? If you want to communicate with the system, you need programming languages. And these programming languages allow programmers to code software. Okay, we use these programming languages to develop the some software applications. Okay, mainly we have three types of programming languages. First one is machine language, second one is assembly language, and the third one is high level language. What is the machine language? This machine language, before knowing about machine language, first what is machine? A machine is a computer. Okay, machine is a computer, a system. So, this machine language contains ones and zeros. Okay, this contains ones and zeros, and this 1 is called as on condition and this 0 is called as off condition. And we can also call this machine language as binary level language or low level language. Okay, why we call this as binary level language? Because it contains only two values, that is ones or zeros. This language contains only two values, those are ones and zeros. That's why it is called as a binary language. And it is a native language of a computer. Okay, the computer can understand only this machine language. And to use this language, we not required any translator program. Okay, so machine already understands this binary language. That's why we need not require any translator to translate into this language. And it is machine friendly but not user friendly. Okay, the machine can understand easily this language, and it is not a user friendly, means the user cannot understand this machine level language. So the examples of this machine level languages are these one. So these are consisting only zeros and ones, right? That's why these are called machine level languages. These machine level languages are easily understood by the system. That's why we need not require any translator. And next one is assembly language. This assembly language is easier than binary language. Okay, this assembly language is easier than binary language. Why? Because it contains some commands and symbols. Okay, see this one, it contains some like add, R1, R2, and assembly language code needs to be translated to machine language before the computer processes it. Means the computer does not understand this assembly language. So to make the system understand, we have to translate this assembly language into machine language. For that we need the one translator, that is called assembler. Okay, here we use assembler translator to convert the assembly language into machine level language. And in this assembly language, we use some commands like add, sub, mul, division, move. So these are some commands we use in assembly language. Generally, we use this assembly language in some washing machines, ACs. So in that washing machines, we use these assembly languages. And next one, high level language. This high level language is similar to English type language. The users can easily understand this language. Okay, but the machine does not understand this high level language. That's why we have to convert this high level language into machine level language. For that, we require two translators. Those are compiler and interpreter. These compilers and interpreters can convert the high level language into machine level language. Then what is the difference between this compiler and interpreter? Those are used to convert the high level language into low level language. But the main difference is this compiler check the errors whole once at a time and it will tell the errors. But this interpreter execute the program line by line. This compiler execute the program once at a time. So this is the main difference between the compiler and interpreter. So this high level language occupies more memory than middle level language and low level language. Okay, these high level languages occupies more memory than middle level and low level languages. But nowadays memories are cheaper, right? So no need to worry about the memories. Why? Because nowadays the memories are available at a cheap cost. So that's why we no need to bother about these memories. So we can use the high level language. Historically, we divide the high level language into two groups. Okay, that is first one is procedural language and second one is object oriented programming languages. We have two types of high level languages, or we divide the high level languages into two groups. First one is procedural language and second one is object oriented language. So first we will see about what is procedural language. The early high level languages are called procedural languages. Okay, the early high level languages are called procedural languages. The focus of these procedural languages is on structure. Okay, mainly they are focused on structure, and these procedural languages are very easier when comparing with the object oriented programming language. And generally these procedural languages follows top down approach, means we write the main function at the top and when the program is executing it follows it starts the execution from top and it executes the program. And in this the program is divided into functions. Mainly the procedural languages divided into functions. The examples of these procedural languages are C, COBOL, Fortran, HTML. So these are some examples of these procedural languages. And next one, object oriented languages. These object oriented programming languages are also high level languages, but the main difference between procedural and object oriented languages is these object oriented languages are uses objects in programming, means we develop the object oriented programming language based on in terms of objects, and in this the program is divided into objects rather than functions, and this object oriented programming follows bottom up approach. Okay. Yeah. So now our main concept, we are entering into our main concept, that is principles of object oriented programming. Okay, or we can call it as object oriented programming concepts, or we can also call it as object oriented programming features. Okay, all are same. So what are the object oriented programming principles? So these are the main features of object oriented programming. The first one is class and object, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. These are the principles of object oriented programming. So first let me discuss about class. What is class? A class is a blueprint of an object. Simply, a class is a blueprint of an object, and it contains the attributes and methods. Okay, a class represents the attributes and methods. These attributes and methods are common to all objects of one type. For suppose, take one example, that is animal class. Here I have declared one class named as animal. In this animal class, this first section contains data members or variables or attributes. Okay, this animal contains some attributes and operations. So the attributes of animal are color, weight, age. So what are the attributes? Attributes are nothing but properties of animal. Okay, properties of animal. Every animal contains some color, weight, and age. These are called data members, variables, or attributes. And this animal can perform some operations, right? Those are eat, sleep, drink. Every animal will eat and it sleep and it drinks some water, right? So these are the operations performed by the animal, and these are also called as member functions or methods or operations. Okay, this is the animal class. So this animal class contains attributes and operations. Let us take another example. For suppose student class. Student class. So in this, every student contains some attributes like student ID, student name, and student contains some marks. So these are the attributes for students, and every student performs some operations, right? He can write the exams, he reads some books. So like that, every student write the exams and read some books. These are some operations performed by the student. And for suppose take another simple example, that is car. Okay, so this car, here car is a class name. This class contains some attributes like color, weight, height, right? And every car can perform some operations like it can move and brake and park. So these are some operations the car will perform. So the car, every class contains some attributes and operations combinedly. This is about class, and it is a blueprint for an object. And next, what is object? A object is an instance of a class. Simply, a object is an instance of a class. Means a object is existing physically. Okay, we can create any number of objects to one class. We can create any number of objects to one class. Okay, for suppose here class is a blueprint, right, and object is a real world entity. For suppose take one example. One civil engineer is there. He wants to construct one building. So before he going to construct building, uh, first he draw a one plan on the paper. First he draws plan on the paper, that is nothing but called as blueprint, right? So after after taking this blueprint, if he wants to modify anything to that building, then he modifies the changes to that blueprint. Why? Because it is very easy to modify the any changes to the on the paper rather than in reality, right? That's why first he draw the blueprint, and after reaching the final stage of that blueprint, now like blueprint, now it is okay, the building plan is super, then he construct the building actually, right? So that is called object. Okay, now he will build that building in reality, that is called object. So from this blueprint he construct the building in real world. So that's why every object is existing, physically existing in reality. Okay, yeah. Here for this animal class we can create any number of objects. For example, dog, cat, lion, tiger. These are some objects for animal class, and these all objects are having same properties of animal class. Okay, here dog can contain color, weight, age, and dog can perform eat, drink, sleep operations. In the same way, cat also having these attributes and it also perform these operations, and lion and tiger also having these attributes and these are perform these operations. So in that way every object having the same properties and operations of attributes of that class. And next one is encapsulation. What is encapsulation? A encapsulation is defined as the wrapping up of data under a single unit, or it binds the code and data together. Simply, encapsulation binds the attributes and functions into a single unit, that is called encapsulation. Next one, inheritance concept. What is inheritance? Inheritance is the main feature of object-oriented programming language. By using this inheritance concept, the programmers create a new classes based on existing class. For suppose already one class is there, so the user can create one new class based on this existing class. And after creating this new class, now this new class can inherit the attributes and methods of existing class by using this inheritance property. Okay, so in this the main use of inheritance is we write the code once. Okay, we write the code once and we can use that code anywhere in our program. Okay, without rewriting the same code again, we use the existing code again. So this is the main concept of inheritance. By doing this, we avoid the duplication of same code. Okay, and so these new methods and attributes can be created in the new class but don't affect the parents class definition. Okay, the methods of attributes which are created in child class do not affect the parent class. Okay, we will discuss deeply about this inheritance concept in later. So, okay, next one, polymorphism. So polymorphism also one of the major feature of this object oriented programming. Here poly means many and morphs means forms. Okay, polymorphism means many forms. When we perform one task in different ways, that is called as polymorphism. Okay, if we perform one task in different ways, then it is called as polymorphism. See this example. Here we have taken only one method, that is add method, but here we are performing different operations. Okay, we are performing this operation in different ways. Here in first line, here we are performing two integer values. Okay, here we are performing addition on two integer values, and in the next line we are performing addition on two float values, and in the third line we are performing addition on three integer values, and in the fourth line we are performing the addition operation on four integer values. So in all these examples we are performing addition operation, but we are performing this addition operation in different ways. First we are performing two integer values, and second we are performing addition on float values, and in third we are performing addition on three values integer values, and finally we are performing addition operation on four integer values. Here our task is same, right, that is addition of some values, but we are performing this in different ways. That is called polymorphism. So simply take one example. Take one person. Okay, in office he behaves like an employee, right? In office he behave like an employee, and in family he behaves like some father, or some father behaves like father, and in some shop, if he went to some shop and there he behaves like an customer. Here person is same. Okay, here person only one person, but he is behaving in different types at different places, right? That is called polymorphism. Okay, so these are the examples of polymorphism. And next one, abstraction. What is abstraction? Simply, a abstraction is a process of hiding the implementation details and showing only functionality to the user. Okay, the abstraction is a process where it can hide the implementation details and it shows only the necessary details to the user. Okay, it hides the unnecessary details to the user. If take one example, so take one ATM. When you went to ATM, if you went to ATM center and you want to draw some 5,000 5,000 rupees from your account, right? There it shows some options. First you insert the card at the ATM center. After inserting, it asking about it showing some options, that is withdraw or mini statements. So it shows the options. There you select the withdraw option, right? So after selecting withdraw option, it is asking about how much money you want to withdraw. Then there you entered some 5000 rupees, and after you entered some your pin number, right? And then after it will give 5000 rupees, right? Means here it shows showing only withdraw function to the user, but it does not showing the implementation code of this withdraw function, right? Why? Because it is not required by the user, just user wants to deduct the money, right? So that's why it only shows the essential functions to the user, and it hides the implementation details of that function. So that is called abstraction. Okay, it shows the only necessary details to the user, it hides the unnecessary details. That is called abstraction. So these are the main features of principles. So what are the features of principle? First one is class and object and inheritance and encapsulation and polymorphism, and last one abstraction. So these are the main features of object oriented programming. So among those features of object oriented programming, I want to discuss about polymorphism and inheritance concepts. Okay, so here what is method overloading? Okay, method overloading is a compile time polymorphism. Okay, if a class has multiple methods having same name but different parameters is known as method overloading. Okay, what is method overloading? If two or more functions have same name, then we call it as method overloading. Okay, we can overload the method in two ways. The first one is by changing the number of arguments, and the second one is by changing the data type. So we can overload the methods in two different ways. First one is by changing the number of arguments, and the second one is by changing the data type. So first we will see about how we can overload the method by changing the number of arguments. Okay, see this example. In this we have created two methods, right? So this is a program. In this I have taken two methods, that is add one this is one method and this is another method. Okay, so this first method add two integer values, and this second method add three integer values. Okay, so first our program start. In this I have taken one header file, okay, that is hash include iostream.h. that is I have going to represent this method overloading in CPP. So in this I have declared one class, that is calculation. Okay, so to create class, first we need class keyword and followed by class name. Okay, and here I have taken public access specifier. Okay, if we declare the any method or attributes as public access specifier, then any class, any child class can use these attributes and methods. And next, here I have taken int add int a comma int b. Here I have taken add method. So this is data type and this is method name and these are parameters. If we write anything inside the braces, these are called parameters. Okay, means it is a function definition. So in this I have written the code that is return a plus b, means here I am performing addition method, right? That's why I have used additional operator here. This function will add these two values a comma b, and this is another function, another add function. But here I have taken three parameters, int a comma int b comma int c, right? So here this function add three integer values. This function add three integer values. So first function add two integer values and second function add three integer values. So I have written the code inside this add function. Okay, and here I am executing this code. So void main, I have written main function because every program need main function, and here I have declared object here. I have created object here. In CPP, how we can create an object? We create an object in CPP by first we have to write class name and followed by object name. Okay, we create object in CPP by first we have to class name and object name. Okay, so here we have taken class name as calculator, right? And here I have declared one object, that is C, for this class. Okay, to execute this program we have to create one object. And now after creating an object, here I am calling this object cout insertion operator c dot add 10 comma 20. It means this is a function calling. Okay, c dot add 10 comma 20. When we write this function name and parameters, inside some parameters and semicolon, so this is called function calling. Okay, when we calling this function, which function will be called? Okay, which function will be executed, whether this one or this one. So if we call this function, when we calling this function, which function out of those two functions will be executed? Okay, here we have two add functions, right? This one and this one. Then out of those two functions, which function will be executed? So then see here, in this function calling we have given two arguments, right? Two integer values 10 comma 20. So this add function will be matched to this. This is matching to this function, right? So that's why in this function also we have given two integer values. So this, when we calling this function, it is matched to this function and it will call this function. Okay, here this 10 value will be passed to this A and here this 20 value will be passed to this B. Okay, and here in this function we have written return a plus b, right? So here it adds two values, that is 10 comma 20, 10 plus 20, so the value is become 30. Then this return keyword will give the result back to this calling function. Here the 30 will be stored in this c dot add 10 comma 20. Now this cout, this 30 will be printed on the monitor. and again the cursor will come to the next line, and here I have written C out less than C dot add 12 comma 20 comma 23. So here I am calling this function C dot add 12 comma 20 comma 23. In this I have given 3 parameters, right? Now this function will match it to this function, right? Here int add int a comma int b comma int c. So this, when I calling this function, it is matched to this function definition, and here this 12 will be passed to this a, and this 12 will be passed to this a, and 20 will be passed to this b, and 23 will be passed to this c. Now we have a value, b value, c value. So this function, then it will execute the code inside this function. Then here return a plus b plus c, means 12 plus 20 plus 23. The answer is 55, right? So here this return keyword, after performing this addition operation, this return keyword will give the result back to this calling function. Then this 55 will be printed on the monitor, and then it will enter into the next line return 0. The return 0 represents the successful completion of a program. Okay, then the program will be ended. So like that, here the method we can overload the method by changing the number of arguments. Here we have same method name, but here we have taken the different number of arguments. That's in that way we can differentiate those methods. And next one, method overloading by changing the data type of arguments. Okay, so in this example also we have declared 2 methods, but these are differs in data type. Okay, see here, yeah, this is another example. In this I have taken same function name, that is add. Okay, yeah, but here I have taken the different type of arguments. Here I have taken integer type of arguments, and here I have taken float type of arguments. Okay, yeah, here see here I have declared one class, same class calculator, and in that class I have declared 2 functions. I have taken 2 functions. First one is, this function is adding 2 integer values. Okay, and this function is adding 2 float values, but they have same function name, method name, that is add. Okay, here this first add function add 2 integer values, and this second add function add 2 float values. Now I have created one object for this class. In the same way, if you want to execute this program, you must create the object for that class. That's why I have created one object here, and now I am calling this c dot add 10 comma 20. Okay, here I am calling the function. When we are calling this function, it will goes to this first function, first method. Why? Because here I am passing 2 integer values, right, 10 comma 20. So it will match to this first function. Why? Because in that first function we have taken 2 integer values, right? So that's why this 10 will be passed to this a, and this 20 will be passed to this b. Okay, now these a and b values will be added, and the result 30 will be given to this calling function and it will be printed on the monitor. And second, when we are calling this function c dot add 2.4 comma 5.2, if you call this function, then the cursor will go to this function. Why? Because here we are passing two float type arguments, right? That's why the function, the cursor will go to this function and it will add these two float values. Here 2.4 will be passed to this A and 5.2 will be passed to this B. Now we have two float values, then it will add those values and it gives the result to this calling function. It will, this return keyword will give the result back to the calling function. So after adding this 2.4 plus 5.2, the result is 7.6 will be given back to this calling function, and it, here we have written cout, right? Cout means it is a function, it will print the output on the monitor. Now this 7.6 will print on the monitor. And next, return 0. Return 0 represents the successful completion of a program, and after it will be terminated. Okay, like that, by different type of arguments we can differ the same function here but with the different type of arguments. This is a method overloading. So in this way we can overload the method with the same name but the different number of arguments and different type of arguments. This method overloading can increase the readability of a program. Means we can perform any number of tasks with the same name. To perform different tasks, we can give the same name. This is the advantage of method overloading. And next concept is inheritance. So this is the main feature of object oriented programming. What is inheritance? A inheritance is a process in which one object acquires all the properties and behavior of its parent object. Inheritance is the concept where one class can acquire all the properties and behaviors of another class. Okay, so for example, this is one class and this is another class. So this class contains some attributes and methods. By using this inheritance property, we can create one child class and we can acquire the all properties and behaviors of its parent class. Okay, means we can use the code of that parent class. This is the main concept of inheritance. Okay, for suppose one parent, take one example, real world example. One parent is there, this is one parent and this is child. This parent have some property, okay, like 50 crores property. Now this child can inherit that properties from that parent, right? Generally this child inherit the properties from the parent. Already here property is there, the child can inherit that property directly, right? This is the concept of inheritance. Okay, and in this inheritance, which the class which is inheriting the objects is called child class. Okay, the class which is inheriting the objects, that is called child class, and the class which properties are inherited are called parent class. Okay, The class which properties are inherited is called parent class, and the class which is inheriting the properties from parent class is called child class. And we can also call this parent class as superclass. Okay, we can also call it as superclass, or we can also call it as base class. Okay, we can also call the parent class as superclass or base class. And for child class, we can also call it as subclass, or we can also call it as derived class. Okay, so here we call these as parent class as the class which properties are inherited are called as parent or super or base class, and the child class which is inheriting the properties from other class is also called as child class, subclass, derived class. Then what is the advantage of inheritance? The main advantage of inheritance is code reusability. Okay, code reusability means in this we can write the code once and we can reuse that code anywhere at any time. This is means we can reuse the already existing code. Okay, so that's why we avoid the duplication of code, and we avoid the code, same code which we can write many times. Okay, so by using this reusability concept we avoid the duplication of that code, means the same code, if we write the same code many times, that is called duplication of code. So by using this inheritance concept we are avoiding that, we are overcoming that drawback. So then what are the types of inheritances? Mainly we have in CPP supports 5 types of inheritances. First one is single inheritance, and second one is multiple inheritance, and third one is hierarchical inheritance, and fourth one is multi-level inheritance, and fifth one is hybrid inheritance. Okay, these are the 5 types of inheritances. Let us see first type of inheritance, that is single inheritance. Okay, so these are the 5 types of inheritances: single inheritance, multiple, hybrid, multi-level and hierarchical inheritances. Then how we can derive the class? Okay, for suppose we have one parent class, and then we can create one child class, and we can derive the properties from that parent class. Then to create the child class we have to follow the syntax. So this is the syntax for the derived class. First we have to write class name. Okay, class keyword, sorry, we have to write keyword class, and then after we have to write derived class name, and then scope resolution operator, and visibility mode. Visibility mode here means here we write public or private or protect, and then base class name. Base class, we have to write the base class name. Base class name means if we want to inherit the properties from one class, that is called base class. So if you want to use the properties of some A class, then you have to write that A class name here. And then so this is the syntax of the derived class. By using this syntax we create the derived class, and after creating the child or derived class we write some code in that class. Okay, it contains some code. If we write the code in that derived class. So if we write the code in this derived class, it does not affect the parent class. Okay. So in CPP, the default mode of visibility is private. Okay, the default mode of visibility is private. If we do not mention any visibility mode, then automatically it will take the private as a default mode, and the private members of the base class never inherited. Okay, if we in parent class, if we write the private access specifier before the member functions, then they are not inherited by the child classes. Okay, so let us see about these access specifiers later. First we see the types of inheritances. So first one is the single inheritance. Okay. Single inheritance means, okay, a single inheritance is defined as the inheritance in which a derived class is inherited from the only one base class. Okay, see this example. So in this, if the child class, here B is child class and A is parent class, if this child class, if only one child class can derive the properties from one base class only, then it is called single inheritance. Okay, the child class can take the properties from one single parent class only. For suppose take example, here one single parent is there, one parent is there, then one child is there. Okay, here this child can take the properties from this single parent only, that is called single inheritance. Okay, if the child take the property from single parent, then it is called single inheritance. Okay, and next one, multi-level inheritance. So what is multi-level inheritance? A multi-level inheritance is a process of deriving a class from another derived class. So see here, this is a parent class. Okay, this is a parent class and this is a child class. This child class is deriving the properties from this parent class, right? And here see, again one child class is there and this child class is taking the properties from another child class, right? That is called multi-level inheritance. For suppose, see one real-time example, that is here we have three classes. This is grandparent and this is parent and this is child. Here this parent is take the properties from this grandparent, right? And here again this child is taking the properties from this parent. Here parent is also act as child. Why? Because he is taking the properties from this parent class, right? So here this class is taking the properties from already deriving class, another deriving class, another child class. In this situation it is called as multi-level inheritance. Okay, and next one, multiple inheritance. So multiple inheritance is a process of deriving a new class from two or more classes. That is called multiple inheritance. Means if the child class take the properties of two or more parent classes. Okay, here one child class is there and he is taking the properties from more than one class, two classes. This situation is called as, this inheritance is called as multiple inheritance. Take some example. For suppose here father, this is a father class and this is a mother class, and here child is there. Okay, here father has some property here, own property, and mother has some own property here. Okay, father has some property and mother also has some own property. In this situation, this child is taking the property from both, from father as well as mother. He is taking the properties from two classes, right? Multiple classes. So this is called multiple inheritance. And next one is hierarchical inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance is the process of deriving more than one class from a base class. Okay, it is opposite to multiple inheritance. See here, if three or more child classes can inherit the properties from single base class, then it is called as hierarchical inheritance. Okay, for suppose one single parent is there, father is there, and this father having three childs, then these three childs can inherit the properties from this father, right? This three child can use the properties of this father. This is called hierarchical inheritance. This is the example of hierarchical inheritance. And next one, hybrid inheritance. A hybrid inheritance is a combination of more than one type. Okay, it is a combination of more than one type of inheritances. See here. So this is the example of hybrid inheritance. In this, so see, this part is a hierarchical inheritance. It represents hierarchical inheritance. Why? Because here two childs are taking the properties from one single base class, right? So here it is a it tells us hierarchical inheritance. And see this part. Okay, this part is multiple inheritance. It represents the multiple inheritance. Why? Because here single class is taking the properties from both two parent classes. So this tells about this is a multiple inheritance situation, right? So the combination of this hierarchical inheritance and this multiple inheritance is here, it is a combination of both hierarchical inheritance and multiple inheritance, right? So it is a, then it is called as hybrid inheritance. Okay, this is about hybrid inheritance. So we have 5 types of inheritances: single inheritance and multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance and hybrid inheritance. In single inheritance, only one single child can take the properties from single parent. This is called single inheritance. And whereas multiple inheritances, from 2 or more classes, one child can inherit the properties from 2 or more classes. This is called multiple inheritance. And multi-level inheritance. Coming to multi-level inheritance, when one child can take the properties from another child, it is called multi-level inheritance, right? And what is hierarchical inheritance? If a 2 or more childs take the properties from one parent class, then it is called as hierarchical inheritance. And what is hybrid inheritance? The combination of 2 or more types of inheritances is called hybrid inheritance. So here it is hierarchical inheritance and this part is multiple inheritance, right? So the combination of these two inheritances are called hybrid inheritances. Thank you.